A very good afternoon to all of you, and of course, namaskar to all of you. Grateful for having me over, and I would not have accepted it, but the topic was so catchy, so meaningful to my profession that I said, yes, for a change, someone talks of the deep. Otherwise, in the modern world, people are only talking about now or never. So I think we need to understand the relevance of the deep in the life or lives of all and one and each one of us. This is very important. I want to bring to light a case study that I got. A gentleman joining office where the office is on the second floor. It's not on the 19th or the 20th floor, but it's on the second floor. And after joining, has not come to office for 3 weeks. The complaint was a health complaint, and it said headaches, giddiness, vertigo, all x-rays, all necessary tests were done. There was no sign of spondylosis or anything. So we asked the client, let's go for a walk. And we went for a walk, and we were on the road where his office was. And we said, how about getting into the elevator and reaching the second floor? And his reaction was, no, 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 no. And I said, we won't get off the elevator, we'll go back down the elevator. And he said, what if I die in the elevator? And I said, well, if you have to die, you have to die. If it's written by God like that your date is that date, then you may. But I think you're going to be fine. I do not guarantee you, but I know you're going to be fine. So he was trembling, holding on to my arm, and he came up the second floor and he went back down immediately. Would not allow the elevator to go up further floors because there were other people with us. And when he came down, moved out of the elevator, I asked him, you're not dead. Are you alive? Are you breathing? And he said, surprisingly, amazingly, shockingly, I am. And I said, okay, now let's understand. Did you get vertigo? No. But I know when I go into my office, I will get. And if I look down the window, I will get very vertigo. Very giddy. So I said, okay, do you want to try that again? Another day? He said, no, we can try it today. I think I'm gaining some energy. And I said, okay. And we came up the second floor. He stepped out of the elevator and just looked around and came back. I said, we can wait. So we waited. And in another 2 minutes, he said, let's try again. I said, which again? You only stepped out. You didn't reach your office. So he said, okay, let me try. And then he stepped out of the the elevator. And then he moved into his office. He was breathing rapidly, but no giddiness, no vertigo. He said he had a pain in the head. I said, is that a normal headache that you get? He says, I will think about it. So he didn't want to commit what kind of a headache it was. So I made him walk around his room, and then he said, where is this second floor? I said, you know it. He said, no. I said, go have a look at the window, a big window. And he looked down and he screamed, save me. And I said, from what? You're there, you're fine, you're beautiful, you're okay, you can have some water. And we sat down. His breathing came back to normal. And since then, we have been talking what led to this headache, this giddiness. And in that process, I met his mother. In one of the sessions with the mother said, I never had any laundry to do. I'm such a good mother. When he was 2 days old, 3 days old, and he was born in the month of January when it is cold. He's snug in his little bed with a quilt on him. So the mother every half an hour takes him out of the quilt, has a little basin down on the floor, makes him sit on her 2 feet like this, and he pees down and puts him back into the bed. She said one day to me, it's many times he's so heavy and he was so healthy. I was so proud of being his mother. What a healthy baby, that I have asthma and I could hardly lift him, but I did. That at least 10 to 12 times he fell on the basin, on the ground. That was one lead I got from the mother, that he had developed phobia for heights. Now, he couldn't have remembered that exact incident or a number of incidents where he would have fallen from a cozy quilt into a cold room, because in India, the rooms are not centrally heated, especially the domestic sector. All he could identify himself was that he was taken out from a very cozy bed every now and then, so he would feel shivery, he would pee, and he would be back into the bed. But what was echoing from the deep was, don't go to that height, don't go to the second floor, you're going to fall. So deep are the echoes from early childhood experiences that when Freud talked about them, everybody said this was unscientific in explanation. So the behavioristic school took over and said, we can decondition him. I said, yes, we can. We started to decondition him. But if you only decondition him and not understand the echo coming from the deep, he will develop symptom substitution. That means he would develop some other symptom which will interfere in his daily living and not make him efficient. The next thing, he volunteered, the client himself. I also want to ask you something now that you're so deep into my clinical history. Can you help me with my anger management? And I said, okay. So what happens? He says, when I talk to women, I tend to lose my temper. And I said, really? You don't lose your temper with men? He says, I don't lose my temper with men who are loud. I don't lose my temper with men who work very well, but who are sissy boys. This is his language, verbal protocol I'm giving you. I do. I said you were listening to what your mother was saying, that you were a very healthy child, snug in your quilt, and you used to be taken out. What were the hands like? Very soft. My mother had very soft hands. My mother was a beauty. My mother was so particular about my comfort. My mother was so particular to praise me for whatever I did. But she would get angry when I would break something. I said, something like what? He said, I am a scientist. I said, oh, you're a scientist. What do you do? I make objects, trains out of Meccano. In those days, there were no Legos. So it was Meccano. And the moment I would make a model, like a railboard or a railway engine or a rail engine, my mother would, talk high of me to people. She would call up people and say, my son is great, he's a scientist. But the moment I would dismantle it, wanting to make something else out of it, she would be angry with me. This is a voice coming from his inner self, which he never could remember on his own. But the psychologist helped him seek all this on his own, gradually contacting the mother, the father, the aunt, who was also another significant person in his life. And I think that we cannot look at any human being just as a scientist, just as a psychologist, just as an engineer, just as a professor, but we need to have a holistic idea about the persona of his person, of any person. That is very important. Because a person is an engineer, a person is a psychologist, a person is a dancer, a person is an artist by creativity, by consciousness. But why does he show emotional discord that makes him unhappy? My idea was, why are you not happy? This is what we need to understand, that we've progressed materialistically, but are we happy? And how can we be happy? The road to happiness, the path to happiness, is not to count how many Lamborghinis we have, how much Ferraris we have. No. How many positions and how many medals we have. If our sleep disturbs us, we avoid sleep because we shout in our sleep. Many of us. I can give you n number of case studies. But the path to happiness is to locate and identify the various number of voices that are deep into us and are chasing us, are molding us, are taking us to happiness as well as unhappiness. And you find road rage, you find jealousies, you find violence, you find bombing, Countries are at war just because they have the greed to occupy some territory. More and more and more. We want more. How do we want more? Without listening to what has led to this we want more. Today I end and I say, we need to look deep into us. Thank you very much. God bless you.